Those who were living in this valley of darkness, where the shadow of darkness was there, a great light has dawned. What beautiful imagery. Jesus, He's there. Isn't it interesting? The Galilee was the area once inhabited by Zebulun and Naphtali. Is that a coincidence? Not at all. When Jesus began His ministry, He began in Capernaum of Galilee. His first miracle was where? In Cana of Galilee. Where were the majority of His disciples from? Galilee. It was in Galilee that He spent most of His time preaching and teaching and performing various miracles. You see, Jesus literally brought the light of His ministry to the people who lived in the land that had once been Zebulun and Naphtali, the place of insignificance, the place of darkness, and the place of sin. Isn't that amazing? That God chose to send His Son there. A land described as insignificance, darkness, and sin. Till all of a sudden I began to realize that sounds familiar. That sounds like where God found me. That's where He found you, by the way. He didn't go to the ivory towers of Judaism. He didn't go and allow His Son to be born in the palace in Jerusalem. He didn't allow His Son to march as the general of the armies of Israel. But as the light of the world, He comes to people in darkness and sin, and those who think their lives are so insignificant. Do you see the miracle of this light? You see the power of this witness? But Isaiah doesn't stop there. He not only tells us where this virgin-born son is going to serve or be born or live or come from, he also tells us what He's going to do, what He's going to accomplish. Isaiah 9, chapter 9, verse 2 and 3. The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of the shadow of death, a light has dawned. In other words, it's just beginning. It's just getting started. It's in that moment of dawn. You have enlarged the nation and increased their joy. They rejoice before you as people rejoice at the harvest, as men rejoice when dividing the plunder. Now again, before I get too deep into this, I want to remind you that in the day of Jesus, Galilee, this land of Zebulun and Naphtali, was considered a very dark, a very undesirable land. It was the backwater region of the community. It was the place where those folks live. It was those guys over there. It was the undesirables. It was those who lived on the other side of the track. It's those folks who were from over there. It was the poor. It was the uneducated. It was the unenlightened, the unaccomplished. Peter and John, who were Galileans, spoke before the Sanhedrin in Acts chapter 4. Do you remember the response and the reaction of these educated, elitist Jews? They looked at them and said, these guys are from Galilee. Where did they get all this wisdom and knowledge and information? They were blown away by these simple, common, everyday, ordinary, uneducated men. And all of a sudden they took note because they realized these guys had to be with Jesus. That's the only explanation. You see, that's what God does. He takes every single one of us from the areas that we live in our life where we have really nothing in and of ourselves, and everything that He makes us, it's Him that's doing the work and not us. Are you with me? It's not you and me being a self-made man or woman. There's no such thing. Now, I love hard work. I love people with ingenuity, okay? I love people that have a go get it, all right? They got the right attitudes. That's all good. But I'm telling you this, whenever we lose our humble standing before God, we're in trouble. Because, church, I'm going to tell you, you know where God found me? He didn't find me in Jerusalem. He didn't find me in Bethlehem. He found me in Galilee. That's my identity. That's where I'm from. And one of the things I remember growing up was these words, never forget where you come from. Never forget your upbringing. Why is that? Because there's lessons we learn in those moments that will see us through all the days of our life. That's powerful. I love that. Here's one thing you need to remember, and I have this in your sermon notes. God never calls the qualified, but He will always qualify the called. He always qualifies the called. What is that saying? That's saying if we think we've got something special, and if we think that we've got our stuff together, and we think we're going to do God a favor by serving Him, there's no hope. This lack of humility will hinder what God can do in your life. But when you simply come to God and say, Lord, this is all I've got, but I'm going to tell you, if you'll use it, it's all yours. That's the attitude that God qualifies. God says, I'm glad you said that, because that's the kind of folks I'm looking for right there. And He'll do things in your life where there'll be joy unspeakable. That's full of glory. Galilee's reputation was such that when Philip told Nathanael, I found the Messiah, I found the Anointed One. And Nathanael says, really, where's he from? He's from Galilee, he's from Nazareth. In John chapter 1, verse 46, it's Nathanael who said, can any good thing come out of Nazareth? How'd you like to be from there? Can really any good thing come out of there? Sure. You see, Jesus lived in this most obscure part of Israel on purpose. He lived there for a reason. He lived there so He could prove how His life was meant to shine a very powerful and hope-filled light into a world that's the epitome of darkness. That's why God's Son is from this land.